Welcome to Flying Upstream, the podcast where we uncover the choices, practices, and wisdom that defy mainstream conventions. I'm Kristyn.
And I'm Louisa. And together we're here to illuminate the alternative paths that have shaped human experiences through the ages. In each episode, we'll examine ways to move beyond societal norms. We're passionate about how timeless wisdom and unique lifestyle choices can foster healthier, sustainable, and enriching lives.
Join us as we navigate, challenge, and celebrate the beauty and insight of walking the road less traveled. If you've ever felt like you're flying north for the winter while everyone else is flying south, you've found your flock. Hey, free spirits! Today we're exploring what happens when loss becomes a doorway, when the unimaginable turns into a new kind of connection. Today, my guest, Tammy Young, is a psychic medium and Reiki master who helps people reconnect with loved ones who have passed. She began her career as an electrical engineer at Motorola, but after the stillbirth of her child, everything changed. That tragedy led her to explore spirituality, energy, and the possibility that love truly never ends. Her story is powerful and heartfelt and surprisingly practical, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Tammy, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Thank you for having me, Kristyn. I appreciate that.
I'm so excited to dive in. So you started out in such a logical, grounded field, engineering.
Yes, I did. I know, that's
Practical.
weird.
But that was before your world shifted completely. Can you take us back to that moment when grief became the beginning of your spiritual journey?
Yes. So I lost a pregnancy and I was at 4.5 to 5 months. And that just devastated me, right? I felt like in those moments, there was no structure for me to be where I was. I didn't know people that had gone through this. My parents were not part of my life at that time. My husband was in the same career, very logical. My friends were logical. Just really didn't know what to say to me. And I felt like the only way forward was for me to just go to the bookstore. I needed to find some kind of help. And for me, that ended up being spiritual. So that really started me on a path. And I didn't know anybody in that realm either. So books kind of became the only way for me to be able to kind of come to some kind of understanding about what had happened. Why had I lost this baby? This made no sense. So yeah, for me, that was the direction I took was, probably my engineering background, like go back to the books. But then there was a moment in my life where years later, when all of a sudden I felt called to use what I had learned, although I had never practiced it. And it was a friend that their child had gone missing. And my child had been with their son that same day. So, yeah, for me, all of a sudden, I just, as a mother, I just sat down and did what I could, and some things started to happen, which just shocked me I just couldn't believe it. This child, though, he came back later in the day, or actually, yes, very late at night. And for me, as an engineer, I'm going to take down notes. So I took notes about what I had visualized and the feelings I had and all this kind of stuff. And what was funny was the next day, his mother took me to that space that I had visualized, which was downtown Austin. I mean, he didn't actually even leave the town. But it was so shocking to me. I realized I need to get some training. I need to do more with this, because if I could help people in some way, no matter what that was, I felt like I needed to really work on that. So that was really the beginning of really trying to use my gifts in that direction. And as far as engineering goes, yeah, it's great. It pays well, all that wonderful stuff, but it did not feed my soul. And that really is the bottom line for all of us. Like, does it feed your soul?
I so appreciate you mentioning that, because that's a common theme in what we talk about here, which is having your external life and values match your inner values, and how you can kind of get both aligned. And that's really how you feel fulfilled in life and you feel like you're on the right path is when that happens. But so often we don't even recognize that you're misaligned because you're just following what society tells you, right? Engineering is a good job. It's a place to make good money. It's very practical. And, that seems like a good idea to continue
Right.
your career. But we don't even understand that, like, on the inside, it's so misaligned and it's not really what's going to bring you true happiness in life, and it's just not going to be fulfilling. I am curious to know though, do you feel that your background in engineering helped you understand energy or spirit communication in a unique way?
1,000%, because what I know, right, is like there's a action and over here there's a reaction, but you don't see in electricity, like unless you get specific instruments, how are you going to measure that? You can't see it unless you're measuring it. And that
Yeah.
absolutely has me set up to do this, right? It's like energy makes so much sense. I see people doing things or even my own feelings about energy and my gosh, where did that come from? What's going on here? And the more that you look around and you are purposeful about your own personal energy, other people's energy, feeling the energy, it's you have so much more information.
I love that. And I know one of the things that you write about is the after death communication, or ADCs, which are those subtle moments when people sense loved ones nearby. What are some of the ways that shows up for people who may not realize it's happening? Right. And I asked this because shortly after my first child was born, she's a newborn. I was sitting with her. It's like 3 a.m. I'm waiting for my husband to come relieve me so I can get a couple hours of sleep. And I was not sleeping. I was like wide awake, but it was silent and still and dark, holding my child. And all of a sudden I thought my husband say, Kristyn. And I actually started to stand up and say, oh, great. Here's my child, this and that. And then I looked up and there was nobody there. And I walked around, there was nobody. And it was so wild to me because I was like, I know, I heard somebody say my name very clearly. And
Yes.
I'm curious to know, like, is this it's a common thing? Because I thought, oh, I'm not getting a lot of sleep and, you're kind of in a weird place when you have a newborn and I'm just losing my mind. But is this a common thing? And how can people kind of tune into that when moments like this do happen unexpectedly?
Yes. So I think that we actually go through relating that to energy. We go through these different times in our life, right? Like you've just had a baby, you're exhausted. You've just gone through, like you're just probably just kind of floating, just waiting for the next thing. And that means that you're open, right? And I want to say that like I've had this happen to me. And in the beginning, it really kind of freaked me out because it would usually be in those spaces of time, like right before I go to bed, right before I go to sleep. There's that sub time. And that's usually when I would hear you. And I wondered, why do they have to yell at me? Why can't they, maybe that's spookier if I don't know. But it's usually people yelling at me. And I just thought, well, maybe I'm actually kind of dense too, right? Maybe that's, I don't know. But what I love is that it's spirit calling out to you. And I have learned, like, as I hear that, I just usually you can kind of get a feel for the way that they've talked to you, male, female, kind of what's going, you kind of have a feel for that voice. And sometimes you can place it and sometimes you can't, right? But I just say, hey, I hear you and I'm here and thanks for reaching out. Those might be the
Mm.
same energies that you, for instance, when you started talking about this energy that you felt, I had chills right away. Now, there's no reason for me to have chills. I'm sitting here in a sweater. There's no air conditioner. There's no blower, right? I think it is identifying those things that are different. Like, where's this coming from? Also, when I am doing mediumship, spirit will show up with me in different ways, and they will show up as energy or as chills. Like sometimes there's this just very light feeling kind of in the middle of the chest, when you're kind of joining with the spirit. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's beautiful, but it's very light. And I think those are those, we
Mm.
they're yelling at me in one sense, but then when they're with you, it can be very subtle, very slight, but they show up in so many different ways in synchronicities. in symbols. And that's the thing too, is like we are never alone. And those were the kind of things I would tell myself when I was younger, like, well, I'm in this by myself and I'm gonna have to figure this out. And now I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. I am not alone. So I just talk with them like, okay, this is what I need. Can you help me out?
I love that. So, what would you say to someone who's unsure if it's real or just their imagination?
The voices.
Voices, signs, symbols, you're struggling with the decision and you get in your car and a song comes on that's completely relevant to it.
You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say, what's wrong with believing that, right? Give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance to really get into that energy and be with that energy and being accepting and open. Work with your
Mhm.
intuition, work with your gut. I mean, your gut will tell you yes or no. I mean, use your intuition. That is the biggest, boldest, bravest thing that we can do in this time. And I think that when you do that, you begin to be able to sort of discern in small doses, right? You're going to start small and be like, ooh, I think I should do this, or I think I should do that. And if you believe that that cardinal is your grandmother, why not? Why not believe that she's here helping you? Because if you believe that, then she is. She is. Because you basically
Mm.
called that energy to be with you. And you know that we do so well with love and light around us. And when we work in that energy, I just think so much is possible for us.
Absolutely. And I like what you're saying that it might be, it might not be, but there's no harm in believing it because when you
Yeah.
believe it, you're giving it energy and you are making it real, right? Which is something we've talked about on our show a lot is manifesting and you can actually create the world around you. And this is a sliver of that. So if you believe the bird is your grandmother coming to sing you a song, then it really is that.
Yes. Yes, and I've written a book called Afterlife Bonds, and in that book, there's really quite a few exercises that go along with my own personal story. But those kinds of things can give people an insight or maybe just like a first touch if they want to explore more around using your intuition for your everyday life.
That's amazing. And I know you also teach practices like meditation, dream journaling, automatic writing. How did those help people open that line of communication with spirit or even with their own intuition?
Thanks for that question. I have a friend that will talk to me a lot about, oh, I had this dream last night, right? So if you have a dream last night, and you don't write it down, there's a chance you're gonna forget it. I feel like those dreams are really our intuition. Also, our influences, our grandmothers, our ancestors, are there able to be with us in some type of energy during the time that we sleep. We are the most open. So, like for me, I would wake up and forget. So I learned for a period of time to just, I'm realizing I'm dreaming, wake up and write it down. And though there's so much, I'm going to say, importance, energy, and information that comes through in those moments. It's just our inner world that's opening for us. And I think it's a fantastic kind of an easy way to peek into, well, am I feeling something? Is this real? You know, those and getting information about my life and maybe some direction.
Yeah, that's incredible. I imagine that you've probably witnessed either for yourself or others some deeply moving moments in your work, like through dreams or just readings. Can you share any of those that confirmed for you that our loved ones truly never leave us?
Well, I have to say, in my book, I talk about finding a brother and losing a brother within 6 months, and I am devastated over this, devastated. And and at some point, I realized, wait a minute, I am a medium, and I talk to my brother who's passed. He shows up before he passes, but I talk to him and I tell him, okay, dude, you and me together on this journey, like I haven't had a relative who passed. So you're it. You're it. So show me as much as you can. And what's interesting is I went to a medium because I didn't want anybody to taint or tell me a story that wasn't true to make me happy or whatever. I'm not into that. So I went to someone who didn't know me at all. And I actually did this twice. And my brother showed up both times. He talks about his own life. He talks about what happens when he meets his father that denied him. He talks about his relationship with me, what I meant to him. And the most interesting thing was just his own life, what his life meant on earth. There are so many pieces of that that just floored me. And that really was what made me put the book together, because I think for all of us to understand that, I feel like we live many times. So this is just one life. Let's make the most of it, you know? And I think
Hmm.
that again and again, I keep hearing the message to do the most that you can in this life. Like every life, different circumstances,
Yeah.
do it. Yeah. I recently had a reading. I was reading someone else, and the spirit that came to me had retired, and she had a very placid life, kind of hanging around, doing her daily thing. And her message to me and the person that I was reading for was she wished that she had done more in her life and not done that status quo. She really wanted more. And here she
Wow.
was kind of just waiting, right? And I thought, oh, well, thank you for that, because that's so important to hear. People don't always share that information when they're at that point in their life.
I'm also curious to know how your encounter with spirituality relates or not to your journey with Reiki. Because I know you're a Reiki master. I'm second degree Reiki, so I also share the love for Reiki. What has that journey been like for you?
Well, it's really been remarkable because when I first started doing mediumship and psychic work, mostly in mediumship, I would like try to connect with spirit and immediately start to cry. I mean, just cry. It was ridiculous. And at one point, I was doing a training and I was in a seminar and I was told to like stand up in front of people and give a reading. And I was like, what? And this beautiful, powerful spirit showed up. It was a grandmother, wanted to talk to her grandkids and all this. I couldn't get past the crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I started having friends say to me, what you need to do is learn Reiki so that you can work with the energies that you can't see, but you know are there. And that was a game changer. That made me understand what's going on and more about how this works. So my journey into being a Reiki master was really more for my understanding. But in addition to that, I really use it a lot for distance healing, but I don't do like sessions of Reiki, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. It sounds like it really complements your work as an intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. It just helps me to understand so much more about what I'm feeling and not being either overwhelmed by it, or just kind of I don't want to use the word scared, but just kind of a little freaked out, you know. This is all very natural as humans.
Hmm.
We all have this ability. So I think a lot of that information is not, I don't know how to put it. Maybe mainstream is a good way to say it. Not a lot of people are sitting around talking about, well, Reiki this and intuitive that.
I'm also curious to know how community around you has affected your journey, because so oftentimes we talk to people who have had moments like yours where they're just kind of going along their life, everything is fine, and then all of a sudden they have this awakening and life is never the same as they know it. But it can be really lonely and confusing when you're going through it alone. So have you found
Yeah.
some community or people to guide you and support you through this?
Yeah, that was kind of a weird thing for me. I mean, it kind of was, it kind of wasn't. Originally be like, "Oh my god, this happened, that happened, isn't this wild?" And some people, some of my friends, acquaintances would be like, "Wow, that's so cool. Tell me more." Other people would like change the subject. And so that's really a clear indicator, not me, right? So my
Right.
friend shift, definitely there's a big shift in friends and who I spent my time with and talked with. But also, with 2020, the online community for things like this just has bloomed. And it really has helped I'm going to say all of us just be able to connect and be around for things that we have experiences we would want. Um, But I also have to say that I have just recently moved from Austin to the Seattle area. And even that difference, I don't want to be rude. People just seem very much more open to things here. Yeah, I mean, all of my experiences, whether it was finding the right people to move me into my basement here house, or it was a lady who, our postmaster hugged me. So people are very
Aw,
open. Yeah, yeah, it is a very different environment for me, and I'm really settling into that. I'm really enjoying it.
that's great. It sounds like it was a good move for you, kind of meant to be.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
love
all that
that.
came about through intuition. It was just through, I love this area. I hoped I could get something, and after 4 years of just kinda casually looking on Zillow, something pops up, and I'm like, "Okay, here we go."
Perfect. Great. I love that.
Yeah.
So as we wind down here, Tammy, we've got one last question for you. And you've shown us that your story is one of turning pain into purpose and loss into light. So I have to ask, what do you think we're really here to learn from this human experience before we all cross over ourselves?
Well, I will tell you, one of the things that my brother says in the book, it's love. It is really love, how you create it, how you feel, how you make other people feel. That's the entire process here. And so I think for people who maybe don't get that, maybe having a little bit more consciousness about how you speak to people and treat people. I think that this is way more important than we give credit.
Hmm.
That's really bottom line. It's like this is about love and your treatment of yourself and others.
That's beautiful. I especially want to take a moment to acknowledge the part about loving yourself is something that we don't talk about enough in our society. And in my experience, it has to start there. It has to start with loving yourself, putting yourself first in in a way that is meaningful for you. And I don't mean like never do a favor for a friend or don't feed your children. Really taking the time to understand what your own core values are, make sure the inside matches the outside. That was huge in my own journey. And taking the time to do things that are restorative for yourself and then going out and sharing your love and your true self with the rest of the world, I think is a really important point there. What a
Yeah.
beautiful way to end. Tammy, I really want to thank you so much for sharing your heart and your wisdom with us today. Your story is such a beautiful reminder that love doesn't end, it just transforms. And for our free spirits, if you've enjoyed this conversation and want to keep exploring stories of transformation, purpose, and living differently, make sure to follow Flying Upstream wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also visit flyingupstreampodcast.com to learn more about our guests, inspirational episodes, and ways to stay connected with our community. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and of course, keep flying upstream.
Thank you.
All right, free spirits, that's all the time we have for today on Flying Upstream.
We hope this episode sparked your curiosity and ignited a desire to explore the extraordinary paths less traveled.
Even when the current feels strong, a whole world of possibilities awaits.
We'll see you next time on the other side of mainstream.
So keep questioning, keep challenging, and most importantly, keep flying upstream.